Greetings everybody, hope you all are doing great and welcome to my YouTube channel. And in this particular video we are going to be talking about what forgetfulness is and how do we combat it. So we as a generations have solved so many issues, so many complexities, and we have also gone to the moon and we are also aspiring to go to the Mars. But one important aspect that is still troubling while we are on Earth is the aspect of forgetfulness. Our mind might have evolved through many series of generations and millenniums, but there is one particular thing we are still not being able to decode. That is forgetfulness, of course. But are we going to live like this forever, or can we do something about it? Moving on to the presentation, let's see what data has to tell about forgetfulness. If we can observe the data which has been taken from 800 adults varying from different ages of 18 to 55 years of age, we have calculated what they have forgotten over the past week or misplaced any of the following things mentioned. And if you can observe, it has been noticed that people who are above 55 years of age tend to forget a person's name and a password. And if you can notice, the people who are in between the ages of 18 to 34, they are quite forgetful when it comes to person's age, their phone number, car keys, wallets, and in the worst case scenario, even they forget to take a bath or a shower. So this seems to be a very dreadful problem. So what are we going to do about it? Before that, let's see what history talks about it. So the biggest drop in the retention happens soon after learning. This term has not been coined by me, who am I? But of course, it has been coined by the famous German psychologist Hermann. So what he has done, let's try to understand it in detail. If you can look at the graph, on the y-axis, it has been mentioned retention, and on the x-axis, the number of days. The forgetting curve essentially shows us that the learners will forget an average of 90% of what they have learned within the first 7 days. Very astonishing and very dreadful, isn't it? So see what are the factors that even influence it first place. So the factors are basically intoxication, the depth of the information, vitamin B12 deficiency, the stress and anxiety, lack of sleep, and mindset bias. I'm not telling that these are the only things that hinder our progress, but these are the main factors that have been listed on several research papers. What do they have to do with us? Let me give you an example. So considering intoxication, if you have been binge drinking of lately, you will notice that your retention rate isn't that good. And this has been also observed that if you sleep for a very limited amount of time, you tend to be quite forgetful because your brain isn't well rested. If we're trying to learn something, if we try to grasp it at a very surface level, it doesn't stay with us because our mind has to process the environment, it has to process the different rational and also many other factors. So we can't blame the poor little mind. Just to make sure that he comes up with a holistic development of his individuality so that he can curb this once and for all. And let's even before we getting into the habits, I have 3 proven tips that can help you combat forgetfulness. What are those? Let's also try to look at a fancy graph while we are at it. If you can see the same kind of graph that is I have showed in the earlier slide about the information retained and the time elapsed. If you can see on the very first day, if something has been taught to us, it sticks for our mind very well, and as I've told you earlier, over the period of days you tend to forget it. And how do you combat it? We can do it by first method which has been mentioned called periodic revision. If you can notice the graph, it has been mentioned that there is a first review, second review, and a third review. And if you observe, the forgetfulness curve is slightly decreasing and it is improving over the periodic revision. So what happens is, the moment you learn something on a first day, you give it few days of reflection, and after let's say 7 or 8 days, try to learn the concept or revise it once again. If you keep doing this again and again, you don't tend to forget things. Not only you not forget this stuff, it also stays so relevant that you start articulating it in your day-to-day life. That's how learning is, right? It is not meant to learn and remember or be it in your back of your head. You have to relate and how do you use it in your daily life. And another important aspect is stretching recall. You can see a lot of mathematicians or data scientists or even doctors practice this. So what they do is, if a particular concept is being taught to them on X day, after X plus 5, 6, that number is variable again, what they do is, instead of going through the material again, they try to close their eyes and revise it once again. So this makes sure that the information is relevant, fresh, and always they are top of the game because they always reflect. Hence, as a human being, reflection is a very important aspect. And how do one go about it is through the process of stretching recall. This both aspects which you see has to be dealt with the learner. What if the teacher can change things and make it a little better for us? And here comes the third advice, which is micro learning. Instead of teachers dumping in a lot of information on the students in one particular session, they can talk about few bits of concepts and then have a very beautiful teaching around that. It doesn't have to be much fancy. Essentially, the point I'm trying to drive home is, if a small unit of information is being taught in the class, it is tend to be noted that it is 17% more efficient and it creates 50% more engagement in the process of learning. This is something that we can't ignore. And last but not the least, we need to have few habits that can be very beneficial in our life. These are must to add in our toolkit in the process of making our life much better. What are those? These are the very obvious ones that you come across through all the YouTube channels or the articles or be it any self-help book. But I have to reiterate this because I cannot emphasize on the fact that how important these are. These include the physical activities, the mindfulness aspect of meditation, maintaining a healthy and a timely diet, and yes, adequate sleep and being organized. In these days, because of all the stimulation and the activities around us, it's also advised that one should not shun away from taking therapy. Whatever works, guys. It's one life that we're going to live it, and it's important that we cherish each and every moment of it.